Today, we are diving into something that, let's be honest, drives all of us crazy: the hidden costs of complexity. We're going to break down some really cool research that gets to the bottom of why simple products so often become, well, anything but simple.
You know that feeling, right? You're trying to buy something that should be easy, a flight, a new phone, and suddenly you're drowning in a sea of add-ons, weird fees, and a dozen different versions. It is so frustrating. And it turns out that confusion is often part of the plan. So just look at this. At first glance, you see a phone with a price. Simple. But then you start noticing all the little extras: shipping options, screen types, warranties, each one changing the final cost. This is exactly how a straightforward purchase gets messy, and it's a super effective way for sellers to hide the price you actually end up paying. This whole strategy actually has a name in the world of economics, and once you get it, you'll start seeing it everywhere. It's the key to becoming a much savvier consumer.
The term is obfuscation, and really, all it means is anything a seller does that makes it harder for you, the customer, to figure out the real price and what you're truly getting. It's not just about hiding things. It's about making the search itself tiring and costly. It's basically strategic confusion.
So, to really understand how this works in the wild, a group of economists did something pretty cool. They didn't just guess, they built their own little market from scratch to watch this all play out.
What they did was set up a virtual marketplace. They had 6 sellers and 10 buyers, all there to trade these pretend phones. By creating this controlled world, they could perfectly isolate what happens when you inject a little complexity into an otherwise simple transaction. And they ran 2 different versions of this market. First, you had the transparent market. Here, buyers saw the total value of every phone instantly, no tricks, no hidden costs. But then, you had the obfuscated market. And this one was a lot more like the real world. Buyers had to click through a bunch of add-ons to piece together which phone was actually the best deal. The difference was, well, it was huge. In that clear, transparent market, buyers walked away with almost all of the value, like 97% of it. But the second you introduced that complexity, the buyers lost out big time. They ended up with about a third less value than they should have. That confusion literally cost us money.
Okay, but here's where this whole thing gets really, really interesting. It turns out that not all complexity is the same. There are actually 2 different kinds, and the way we feel about them is completely different. First up, you've got what the researchers call surplus enhancing complexity. These are the add-ons that actually make the product better. Think upgrading to a better camera or getting a longer warranty. Sure, it's an extra step, but we put up with this kind of complexity because we're getting something real in return. And because of that, it's a really stable strategy for sellers. But then there's surplus neutral complexity. And this is the junk. This is complexity just for the sake of complexity. Think of those bogus processing fees or confusing service charges that don't actually add any value. They're only there to muddy the waters. And the study found this strategy is surprisingly fragile. We eventually catch on that these products aren't any better, and we learn to just stay away.
And this quote right here just nails it. We instinctively pull back from complicated products. But, and this is the key, only when we feel like we're not getting anything out of the deal. If the extra hoops lead to a genuinely better product, we'll play along. Our intuition is pretty sharp. We can learn to tell the difference between a real feature and just fluff. So, if we're so good at spotting the bad kind of complexity, why does this tactic work at all? Well, the answer has everything to do with how we actually shop. See, the experiment found we basically fall into 2 camps. You've got your browsers, who look at a lot of different products but only ever scratch the surface. Then you have the studiers. They pick maybe 1 or 2 options and really dig in, examining every little detail before they make a choice. So which one are you? Well, it turns out most of us are studiers. A whopping 60% of the buyers in this experiment only looked at 1 or 2 products before they bought something. And that limited search, that's exactly what sellers are banking on. If we don't shop around much, they don't have to fight so hard on price and features. So what makes one person a browser and another a studier? The research points to this fascinating idea called your personal cost of thinking. Basically, for some of us, the mental energy it takes to compare a ton of features is really high, so we browse. For others, that mental cost is lower, and they're more willing to dig in and be a studier. It's a direct link between how our brains work and how we shop. All right, let's pull all this together. This isn't just a bunch of theory. It actually gives us a really powerful new way to think about our own decisions as consumers. So here is the big takeaway. The next time you're shopping and you start to feel that sense of being overwhelmed by options, just stop and ask yourself this one simple question. Is this complexity actually adding real value to what I'm buying, or is it just adding confusion? Is it a useful feature, or is it just a hidden fee? Just being able to spot the difference is the absolute biggest step toward making sure you're the one who comes out on top. And all of this leaves us with a pretty big question to chew on. We've seen that when markets are transparent, competition does its job, and we, the consumers, win. But when they're complex, we lose. So if this hidden complexity is basically a tax on all of our time and money, should there be more rules to make things simpler? It's definitely something worth thinking about.